It's finally here. The newest game in the fan-favorite Gundam Breaker series, Gundam Breaker 4. Bandai Namco was kind enough to provide me with an early review copy of the game, and while I haven't explored everything that it has to offer in the few days that I've been playing it, I'm here to yap about my thoughts for a bit. And you're just gonna have to sit there and listen. Unless you choose to click away from the video, but please don't do that. Gundam Breaker 4 is a love letter to Gundam and Gunpla fans around the globe. Now, if you're completely new to Gundam Breaker, Gunpla, or Gundam as a whole, welcome. Gundam Breaker is a series of games centered around Gunpla, which is a short name used for Gundam plastic model kits of the mechs from the various Gundam anime and manga series. In the Gundam Breaker series, you build your own custom Gunpla by collecting various parts from different sources across the game, including fighting enemies, end-of-mission rewards, and in-game shops. This whole idea is based on the real-world concept of kit bashing, where Gunpla builders will take parts from different kits and put them together to create something unique and totally new. Gundam Breaker 4 combines fast-paced mech action with a level of customization unlike anything we've ever seen before, making for endless possibilities when it comes to how you can enjoy the game. But first, a little background to help you understand why this game is so important to the Gundam community as a whole. Gundam Breaker as a series has a bit of a cult following, in part because so many Gundam fans around the world love Gunpla, and people who like Gunpla are naturally going to like Gundam Breaker. But on top of that, the community has been waiting for a new title in what feels like forever. The last Gundam Breaker game to release on PS4 and PC was New Gundam Breaker in 2018, and long story short, it was not received well. Before that, the previous numbered title, Gundam Breaker 3, released in 2016 on the PS4 and PS Vita. That was 8 years ago. Do you remember what you were doing in 2016? Because I was in my first year of university and now I'm 27. And the PS Vita might as well not even exist anymore. Aside from that, we had Gundam Breaker Mobile, which did scratch the itch when it came to the customization, but the gameplay left a lot to be desired because it was an auto-battler and a gacha, and the game unfortunately shut down in summer of 2023. All this is to say that the announcement of GB4 was huge for Gundam fans and everyone has been eagerly looking forward to this game for months. You start off the game by loading into the main lobby, and the setting of GB4 is interesting because it breaks the fourth wall a little bit. Within GB4, you are a player who is logging into an online game called Gunpla Battle Blaze Beyond Borders, otherwise known as GB4. This is set in the near future where advances in technology allow players to log into this virtual world remotely and use their Gunpla as avatars to meet up and socialize, as well as take part in missions and battles. And that's the neat part about it. We already know that Gunpla scanning technology is currently being developed in the real world, so this feels like something that could reasonably be possible in our lifetime. You have characters talking about how logging into GB4 lets them forget about their problems in the real world, or how their family thinks they should stop playing GB4 so they can focus on more important things. These moments help to make the writing and the story as a whole feel a lot more authentic and grounded because these are things that you can experience when it comes to any hobby. Right when you begin the story, you meet a guy named Tao. He takes you through the tutorial mission and shows you the ropes of GB4. The general loop of the game is pretty simple. Play missions and collect parts from Gunpla that you fight against in battle, use those parts to customize and upgrade your own Gunpla, rinse and repeat. It sounds simple, but because of the level of customization you have access to, the experience can completely change based on how you build your Gunpla. The biggest difference in how you put together your kit compared to previous Breaker titles is that you can now select 11 individual parts rather than 8. This is because in GB4 your arms don't have to be selected as a pair, you can pick 2 different ones. Not only does this allow for some cool aesthetics, but now you can also equip 2 different ranged weapons and 2 different melee weapons, one for each hand. Your weapon choices have a big impact on your gameplay because the weapon types behave differently. This is especially true for your melee weapons since you'll be using them a lot more than you'll be firing your ranged weapons. Axes can charge up a strong attack for big chunks of damage, twin blade sabers can stack hits quickly to build your combo, whips have a large AoE that's great for hitting multiple enemies, you get the idea. Your body parts matter too, not just because you want your Gunpla to look cool, but because they can come with skills that you can use in battle. There are option skills that can be used more often and have their own individual cooldowns, and EX skills that tend to be much stronger and require you to build a shared meter, with each skill having a specific cost depending on how strong it is. The gameplay itself isn't overly complicated. You have separate inputs for your left and right hand ranged and melee weapons, and you mix in your OP and EX skills where you can. Like I mentioned, you're probably going to spend a lot more time using your melee weapons because they hit a lot harder, and if you're using 2 different ones, you can switch up your combo by changing the timing of your inputs. So if you land 2 hits with your right weapon before attacking with your left, the combo will look different than if you waited until after 4 hits to switch. In the case of two-handed weapons like greatswords, the 2 buttons for each hand just result in different combos. You also have both a combo bonus and break bonus meter on the right side of your screen. The former increases as you land hits, while the latter increases as you break parts off of enemy Gunpla, and both of these go up to S rank. You'll want to aim to get them as high as possible in each wave because they give you boosts to your attack power and item drop rate, while also increasing your odds of S ranking the mission as a whole. Earning an S rank is something you should shoot for every time you launch a mission because it rewards you with an item called a Breaker Booster, and you can use this before a mission to increase the drop rate of parts. Your Awaken meter at the bottom of your screen is built up through combat, and your Awaken is basically like a burst that gives you a ton of buffs as well as access to an ultimate move that you select when you're assembling your Gunpla. Most of the missions are pretty similar, you're basically just beating up robots, but you will sometimes get a wave where you have to defend a HLV, or a boss wave where you have to fight a giant mobile armor or perfect raid. What I like about the gameplay is that it's easy to pick up for new players while also having room for veterans to optimize. For example, when you get really used to your build, you'll eventually be able to weave your EX and option skills into the middle of your combos to help extend them even further. You also might choose to swap between fighting a boss and defeating other smaller enemies to make sure that you don't reset your break bonus, things like that. There's even an element of build crafting thanks to the abilities that parts drop with, which we'll get to in a bit. As for the story itself, I'm actually not allowed to talk about anything past chapter 2, but that's probably for the best since that way you don't have to worry about spoilers. You start a clan with Tao and another player Lin who you meet in your first real mission, and from there you slowly start meeting new friends and recruiting them. You compete in your first clan battle and end up discovering you're one of the few players that can use the Awaken skill, and your clan slowly begins to get stronger as you continue to gather more members. But there's also definitely some weird stuff going on in the background. For example, when you're running missions, you'll sometimes see some strange glitches in the system. The other characters notice too, but they write it off as a bug since canonically GB4 is still in beta, but there's clearly something more at work here. And then there's Lin's doppelganger Lilin. You run into her randomly in the lobby one day and she looks exactly like Lin, with the exception of her eyes being much more flat. It's clear that she has trouble being social and understanding human emotions, which makes me think she might be some sort of AI, and I wonder if she and the glitches are connected somehow. There are also little side plots like when Sheena, a rich girl you welcomed into the clan, confides in you that her snooty family may force her to quit playing GB4. So overall, they've set up some really interesting plot points and I'm excited to see where the story goes, I just hope the payoff is good. One thing I was actually really impressed by was the voice acting. Don't forget this is the first Gundam game to get a full English cast in who knows how long, so I wasn't sure what to expect. You know how when you watch an anime in English dub it sometimes sounds unnatural or cringy, not necessarily because of the voice actors themselves, but because the way Japanese dialogue is written just sounds somewhat awkward in English? I think a part of me expected the dialogue in GB4 to feel like that, but I think the voice actors did a great job. And each character has a pretty distinct personality, so they play off each other really nicely. The characters themselves are also really well designed. A lot of their outfits have fun little nods to various Gundam series, like how Tao's jacket kinda resembles a Federation uniform, or how Lin's outfit is a spin on Zaft's red uniform. And then you have characters like Chaos who look like they came straight out of a fantasy game. Overall, just really awesome art direction. There are of course other modes besides the story missions. Quests are side missions with no story attached to them, but they usually have some pretty cool kits that you can drop parts from. And let me tell you, it is such an exciting feeling when a mini-boss or boss spawns into a mission and it's a suit you really like, and you immediately get that neuron activation where you go, oh, I want those parts. Both story missions and quests will be playable online with up to 2 other players, and while the servers weren't active while I was playing, I do have some experience with the multiplayer from playing the betas. For the most part, the experience was pretty smooth aside from some desync issues, so I hope they found a way to mitigate those for the full version of the game. The third option at the mission desk is the Bounty Hunter mode, where you can battle against Gunpla used by other characters in the story, or even other online players, and collect parts from them as well. And lastly, while it's not active just yet, we know that there will be various live events when the full game releases, so I'm looking forward to seeing how they play out, and hoping that they can help the game feel fresh over time. Once you drop parts from any of these modes, your next step is going to be to combine them to create your own custom Gunpla, and when I say the customization is endless, I'm not joking. Not only are there over 250 base kits in the game to collect parts from, but you can also add additional builder's parts for aesthetics or to add additional skills, and you can adjust the size and position of every body part and builder's part. On top of that, you have a full suite of tools for custom painting your kit, from color selection to surface appearance to patterns and weathering. You can easily spend over an hour in here fine-tuning your Gunpla to perfection. My only real gripe with the customization is that it feels like a lot of popular kits are missing. As unrealistic an expectation as it is, I was really hoping that the entire kit list from GBM made it into GB4. When you have Gundam Mark II and Gundam Mark II with Vulcan Pod as two separate kits, and yet kits like Starbuild, Striker, Vidar are missing, and there are only 2 kits from Wish for Mercury, that feels kinda bad. Obviously, we still have to see which kits will be added for each DLC, but I still would have liked to see some of these popular suits in the base game. Now, when you're first getting started, you're pretty much going to have to use whatever you happen to drop in missions. You can have all the fancy EX and option skills you want and have your gunpla look all nice and pretty, but if your parts are below the recommended level for the mission you're running, it's going to take much longer to take down those enemies. So as much as it might pain you to look at, get ready to use a Frankenstein build for a bit. For the first 2 chapters of the story, I would recommend taking a mix of parts that are high level and parts that provide you with some skills so that you're not just doing standard combos the entire time. You'll notice that in addition to a level, each part will have a rarity that dictates how many abilities can roll on that part. The number of abilities is always 1 more than the rarity, so a 1-star part will have 2 abilities, a 2-star part will have 3, and so on. I would always aim to have at least 1 part that has the item drop rate quality ability, since it will increase your chances of getting higher rarity drops. This is important because these parts will have more abilities, which will come in handy when you unlock the synthesis feature. The main thing to be aware of here is that some of the abilities aren't exactly clear about what their function is based on the name alone. I really hope they update the game with ability descriptions somewhere down the road, because from what I've heard from speaking with other creators, the only place these were explained were in the dev streams, and the majority of non-Japanese players are not going to go back and watch a stream in a language they don't understand just to learn what an ability does. The synthesis feature is unlocked in Chapter 3 and allows you to level up your parts and increase their rarity while also sacrificing other parts to transfer their abilities to the part you actually want to use. This is where you can truly craft your ideal gunpla because you can get the look and skills you want while also having strong abilities to complement your gameplay. You have 2 options in terms of materials that you can consume for synthesis: other parts or plastic, which you can begin earning in Chapter 3. When you consume other parts, the part level for the part you're synthesizing increases, and you have the option to take abilities from the parts you're consuming and replace the ones that have rolled on the base part. I tend to prioritize the item drop quality ability, abilities that allow me to heal myself, or abilities that allow me to build my EX or awaken meter faster. As for plastic, there are 2 different types, one to increase part level and one to increase part rarity. Your level and rarity caps will increase as you progress through the story, and increasing the rarity of a part will unlock an additional ability slot that you'll then have to fill with an ability from another part. There is another option called derivation synthesis where you use 2 parts to create a new one, but I'll be completely honest, I haven't played with this at all and I have no idea how it works just yet. The point is, in a game like this that relies a lot on random drops, the synthesis feature is a godsend because it makes you feel like drops still matter without leaving you completely at the mercy of RNG. Last but not least, we have the photo and diorama modes. Now I'll be honest, I haven't played around with these at all other than doing the basic tutorial because I've been so busy playing through missions, but diorama mode is also clearly something the devs have put a lot of time into. You can place multiple gunpla in your diorama and have a variety of set pieces, combat effects, and damage settings to play with to really let your creativity flow. In past titles there have been contests to see who can create the coolest photo or diorama, and I'm consistently wowed by the level of creativity that some of the players in the community possess. So I can't wait to see what people come up with now that they have these tools at their disposal. That's all I got for you on my initial review of Gundam Breaker 4. I want to give another thank you to Bandai Namco for providing me with an early copy of the game because without it, I wouldn't be able to bring you this content, so I really do appreciate it. Whether you've been a Gundam fan for decades or you just discovered the franchise in the last year with Wish for Mercury, Breaker 4 is a game that I think every Gundam fan should at least try. It's been a long time coming and I truly believe it lives up to the hype, and I can easily see myself sinking hundreds of hours into this game. It's not perfect, like I mentioned there are things here and there that I think could be improved on, but I think it speaks to the quality of the game that those things did not hinder my enjoyment overall. With smooth gameplay that allows you to make full use of the parts you've collected, the beginnings of an interesting story with diverse characters, a deep level of customization and build crafting that lets you play the game how you want, and tools that will allow you to share your creativity with other players, Breaker 4 has built on the foundations of what made the series successful and delivered a truly enjoyable experience. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a positive rating to help me in my boss battle against the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.